Have you ever done something for yourself, set a boundary, said no for once, or prioritized your own well-being only to feel a heavy weight settle in your chest? That creeping discomfort, that nagging voice questioning if you did the right thing, that's guilt. Or maybe it's deeper, a quiet belief that no matter what you do, you are not enough. That if people really saw you, they wouldn't accept you. That's shame. These emotions don't just pass through us. They shape how we see ourselves, how we show up in the world, and whether we keep playing small or finally step into our power. But here is the truth. Guilt and shame don't have to break you. They hold something deeper, something that can shift the way you experience yourself and your emotions. Welcome to Case Calm Kit, where we explore emotional awareness and the hidden strength behind emotions. This video is part 3 of our series, How to Transform Negative Emotions into Superpowers. If you haven't watched the previous episodes yet, I highly recommend checking them out later. In part 1, we explored why negative emotions arise, and in the previous episode, we uncovered the hidden power behind fear and anger, two emotions that seem destructive, but actually hold deep wisdom. I will link those videos in the description so you can dive in after this one. And today, we are tackling guilt and shame, two emotions that either weigh you down or wake you up. Whether they keep you stuck or push you forward depends on one thing: how you respond to them. By the end of this video, you will have the tools to recognize guilt and shame for what they truly are, break free from their grip, and shift the way they influence your life. You will also be equipped with a simple yet powerful tool, the reset strategy, to help you navigate these emotions with more awareness and control. So let's begin with guilt. Why does it hold so much power over us? And how can we shift it from something that weighs us down into something that moves us forward? Guilt is a heavy feeling that often hits us unexpectedly, lingering in the chest like a stone that wouldn't budge. It creeps in when you least expect it, after a conversation, a decision, or even a simple choice to put yourself first. Imagine this. You've always been the person who says yes, the one who helps, who accommodates, who puts others first. But today, something inside you told you to draw a boundary. Maybe a friend needed a favor, a family member expected something from you, or a colleague asked for extra help. You knew you were already stretched thin, so for once you said no. At first, there was relief, a small sense of reclaiming your time, your energy, your peace. But then, almost immediately, guilt rushes in like a wave. What if they are upset? What if they needed me? What if I should have tried harder? It's like you've done something wrong, even when you haven't. You feel selfish, unkind, or unworthy of prioritizing yourself. Your mind spins a web of regret, pulling you into second-guessing, over-explaining, or even trying to make up for something that was never truly a mistake. But here's the thing. Guilt doesn't always mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes guilt is a signal that we've acted against our values. Other times, it's simply a learned response, a result of expectations, conditioning, or past experiences that have wired us to feel bad for putting ourselves first. But before we can understand what our guilt is really telling us, we first need to recognize how it shows up in our body, our mind, and our emotions. How guilt manifests physically: a tightening in your chest or stomach, a heavy, weighty feeling that makes it hard to breathe, a sense of unease or restlessness as if something is off, physical exhaustion because guilt can drain your energy even when nothing has physically happened. How guilt manifests psychologically. Psychologically, guilt shifts the way we think, distorting our inner dialogue. Constant inner dialogues of self-criticism with phrases like, "I should have done more," "I could have been better." Feelings of inadequacy, as though you failed to meet expectations, whether your own or others. Rumination, replaying events over and over, questioning your actions and choices, searching for ways you should have done things differently. How guilt manifests emotionally. Guilt triggers complex emotions that can be both overwhelming and subtle. It isn't just about what we think, it's about how we feel. It often involves shame or embarrassment, bringing a fear that maybe you are a bad person, Anxiety as the fear of judgment, rejection, disappointing others, or punishment looms. A desire to make up for the wrong, to fix things, but also the confusion about how to do so. You might find yourself over-apologizing, over-explaining, or overcompensating. A deep longing for forgiveness, both from others and yourself. Now think about a time when you felt guilty. Maybe it was after a disagreement, when you wished you had handled things differently. Or maybe it was a time when you did something for yourself and felt like you were neglecting someone else. Guilt crept in, didn't it? It's relentless. It whispers you've made a mistake and you need to fix it. But what if guilt isn't here to punish you? What if it's trying to reveal something deeper, something that can help you heal? Guilt is a complex emotion. At its core, it comes from the belief that you've done something wrong, that you violated a moral or personal standard, whether it's your integrity, your values, or the expectations of others. But guilt isn't just about mistakes. Sometimes it appears when we haven't actually done anything wrong at all. Imagine this. You've always been the one who says yes, the one who puts others first, who makes sacrifices to keep the peace. But one day, you finally decide to set a boundary. Maybe you cancel plans to rest, turn down a request for help, or speak up about something that has been bothering you. Logically, you know you did nothing wrong, but guilt creeps in anyway. Am I being selfish? Did I let them down? Should I have done more? This is where guilt becomes tricky. Sometimes it's a useful guide, a signal that we've acted against our values and need to make amends. But other times it's a false alarm, conditioning from years of people-pleasing, societal expectations, or a deeply ingrained belief that our worth is tied to how much we do for others. Guilt doesn't always reflect reality. Guilt can be misleading. It doesn't always mean you've done something wrong. It simply means you believe you have. But where does that belief come from? Healthy guilt arises when our actions misalign with our values. Maybe we spoke harshly in an argument or neglected a commitment we truly care about. In this case, guilt is useful. It nudges us toward growth and accountability. Unhealthy guilt is different. It comes from unrealistic expectations, either from ourselves, from others, or from a culture that teaches us we must always be available, always accommodating, always good enough. This guilt convinces us that prioritizing ourselves is wrong, even when it's necessary. And this is where guilt becomes dangerous. When we internalize it too deeply, we don't just feel bad about an action, we start feeling bad about ourselves. It starts being about what we did and turns into who we are. That is when guilt begins to morph into shame. Here's the truth. Guilt is not here to punish you. It is here to guide you. Instead of treating guilt like a verdict, as if it's proof that you are selfish, wrong, or unworthy, what if you saw it as a mirror? A moment to pause, reflect, and ask, is this guilt telling me I truly need to correct something? Or is it revealing a limiting belief that no longer serves me? Guilt can show us where we need to take responsibility, but it can also reveal where we need to break free from unhealthy conditioning. And when we learn to recognize the difference, guilt stops being a burden and starts becoming a tool for self-awareness. But what do we do with the guilt we do carry? How do we move through it without letting it turn into shame or self-punishment? That's where self-compassion comes in. On the other side of guilt is something most of us don't give ourselves nearly enough: self-compassion. Self-compassion doesn't mean ignoring ourselves. It doesn't mean we stop caring about how our actions affect others. Instead, it means that when we recognize a misalignment, we meet ourselves with kindness instead of self-judgment. Guilt says you messed up, you should feel bad. Self-compassion says you are human, you can learn from this. Instead of letting guilt trap you in self-punishment, self-compassion invites you to respond differently. It reminds you, I can acknowledge this feeling without letting it define me. I can take responsibility without attacking myself. I can make amends without carrying guilt forever. This shift frees you from guilt's weight while still allowing you to grow. Because guilt's true purpose isn't to punish you, it is to help you realign. So the next time guilt shows up, Don't just push it away or let it consume you. Pause, ask yourself, is this guilt reminding me of my values, or is it holding me back from moving forward? Because the way you respond to guilt determines whether it becomes a teacher or a burden you no longer need to carry. How to reset guilt into self-compassion. Guilt can be a heavy weight to carry, but you don't have to stay stuck in it. By using the reset method, you can shift guilt from self-punishment to self-awareness, and ultimately to self-compassion. R. Recognize the guilt. The first step is to pause and acknowledge it. When guilt arises, it's easy to push it away or drown in self-criticism. Instead, take a moment to observe the feeling without trying to escape it. Ask yourself, where do I feel this guilt in my body? What thoughts are running through my mind? What triggered this feeling? Simply saying I feel guilty can be a powerful act of awareness. You don't need to resist or hide from it. Just allow it to be there, like a message that wants to be understood. E. Explore the source of the guilt. Now that you've recognized guilt, it's time to understand where it's coming from. Not all guilt is the same. Some of it is a healthy response, while some of it is unrealistic or conditioned. Ask yourself, am I feeling guilty because I truly acted against my values? Or is this guilt coming from an expectation that I must always say yes, always please others, or never put myself first? If guilt arises from a real misalignment, then it's an opportunity to reflect and grow. But if it comes from unrealistic expectations, whether from yourself, society, or others, then it's time to challenge the belief behind it. Was I taught that prioritizing myself is selfish? Am I holding myself to impossible standards? Would I judge a friend as harshly as I am judging myself? Sometimes we carry guilt that isn't ours to hold. Recognizing this is the first step to letting go. S. Shift the narrative. Now it's time to reframe how you see guilt. Instead of using it as a weapon against yourself, what if you turned it into a lesson? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? How can I do better next time without beating myself up? What boundaries do I need to reinforce to honor my values? And what do I need to forgive myself for? Instead of seeing guilt as proof that you failed, shift it into a reminder that you are growing. If you feel guilty for saying no to someone, reframe the thought from I let them down to I honored my limits and I am allowed to take care of myself. If you feel guilty for not doing enough, remind yourself, instead of saying I should have done more, try saying I did what I could within my capacity and that is enough. Guilt is not here to shame you. It is here to help you realign with what truly matters. E. Embrace self-compassion. Imagine your closest friend comes to you, weighed down by guilt. Their voice is shaky, their eyes filled with regrets. They tell you they feel awful for something they did or didn't do. Would you criticize them? Call them unworthy? Tell them they should feel terrible? Of course not. You would reassure them. You would remind them that mistakes don't define them. You would help them see the bigger picture, show them kindness, and encourage them to move forward with more awareness. Now, what if you did that for yourself? Instead of saying, I should have done more, tell yourself, I did what I could with the awareness I had, and I can learn from this. Instead of believing I am selfish for prioritizing myself, remind yourself, honoring my own needs isn't selfish, it's self-respect. Instead of thinking, I don't deserve to forgive myself, affirm, I am human and I make mistakes, but mistakes are not my identity. They are lessons that help me grow. Self-compassion allows you to heal and move on. It reminds you that you are not your guilt, that you are safe in your mind and body, and that you alone are responsible for setting and honoring your boundaries. The question is, will you give yourself the same kindness you give to others? T. Take action with kindness. Self-compassion doesn't mean ignoring your actions. It means moving forward with awareness, responsibility, and self-respect. So what is your next step? If your guilt came from an actual misalignment, how can you make amends or do better next time? If your guilt was unnecessary or conditioned, how can you let it go and reaffirm your boundaries? Maybe it's having a conversation, offering an apology, or simply committing to a different choice next time. But whatever the step is, take it without self-punishment. You don't need to carry guilt forever to prove you care. Guilt in its most transformative form can lead you back to yourself. When you understand its message, challenge its stories, and shift it into self-compassion, it no longer weighs you down. It lifts you up. It becomes a tool for growth, not a burden for your soul. So the next time guilt shows up, ask yourself, will I let this guilt define me, or will I let it guide me? Because the choice is yours. Guilt tells us I did something wrong. It's focused on our actions, on what we've done or failed to do. But what happens when that guilt goes deeper? When it stops being about a single choice or mistake and starts feeling like who we are is the problem. That's when guilt turns into something much heavier: shame. Unlike guilt, which is tied to behavior, shame attacks our identity. It doesn't just say you made a mistake, it whispers you are the mistake. And once shame takes hold, it's no longer about what happened. It becomes a lens through which we see ourselves. Let's explore shame, what it feels like, how it manifests, and most importantly, how we can break free from its grip. Shame is an emotion that reaches deep into our sense of self. Unlike guilt, which tells us we've done something wrong, shame tells us that we are wrong. It's like an invisible cloak trapped over us, one that no matter how hard we try, we cannot seem to shake off. It whispers to us in the quiet moments, you are not enough, you are unworthy, you don't belong. It convinces us that we are flawed in a way that cannot be fixed. Imagine this: you are standing in front of a room full of people about to speak. As soon as you open your mouth, your voice trembles, your words stumble. Laughter erupts, not unkind laughter, enough to make your face burn. You smile, pretend it doesn't bother you, but inside something shifts. A thought empties itself in your mind. I'm not good enough. I never should have tried. Everyone saw how incompetent I am. Or maybe it's something deeper, something you've carried for years. A time in childhood when you were told you were too much or not enough. A moment when someone you trusted made you feel small. A time when you failed to meet expectations, and instead of feeling guilt for what you did, you felt shame for who you were. Shame isn't always loud, it is subtle. It creeps into the corners of your mind, shaping how you see yourself, how you interact with others, how much space you allow yourself to take up in the world. How shame manifests. Shame isn't just a thought or a fleeting feeling. It affects every part of you. Physically, a tightness in your chest, neck, or throat. A heaviness as if you are carrying an unseen weight. A desire to shrink, hide, or disappear altogether. Sometimes even nausea or a feeling of physical rejection. Psychologically, a relentless inner voice whispering, I'm not good enough. Internalizing failures, believing they define your worth. A fear of being exposed or judged, making you want to hide parts of yourselves. A tendency to withdraw, avoiding situations where you could be seen. Emotionally, a deep sense of inadequacy, feeling like you are less than everyone else. Self-loathing, often mixed with frustration and anger toward yourself. A desire to distance yourself from others, feeling they will see the real you. The belief that no matter what you do, you will never measure up or be accepted. Think about a time when you felt shame. Maybe it was an embarrassing moment in public. Maybe it was a time when someone criticized you, and instead of feeling hurt about the moment, you started believing it was true. Shame convinces us that we must hide parts of ourselves to be accepted, that if people knew the truth about us, they would reject us. But here's the thing. Shame doesn't define you. It's not the truth about who you are. It's a story you've been told, and like all stories, it can be rewritten. Shame doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's born from the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs we've absorbed, often without realizing it. It's tied to our deepest fears, the fear of not being enough, the fear of not belonging, the fear that if people saw our true selves, they would turn away. Maybe it started in childhood when a teacher criticized you in front of the class and the laughter burned into your memory. Maybe it was when you failed at something important and instead of seeing it as a moment of learning, you told yourself, I'm just not good enough. Maybe it was a time when someone's rejection made you believe you were unworthy of love. Whatever the moment, shame doesn't just make us feel bad about something we did. It makes us question who we are. If I make a mistake, I must be a failure. If I don't meet expectations, I must be unworthy of love. If I show my true self, people will see how flawed I really am. Shame convinces us that something is inherently wrong with us, that we are broken in a way that cannot be fixed. But what if that belief is the biggest lie? What if shame isn't a reflection of your true worth, but rather a result of conditioning, unrealistic standards, and wounds from the past that were never yours to carry? Because here's the truth, shame is not who you are. It is something you've been taught to believe, and like all beliefs, it can be unlearned. The flip side of shame, self-acceptance. If shame tells us we are not enough, self-acceptance is the force that sets us free. Self-acceptance doesn't mean ignoring mistakes or flaws. It doesn't mean we stop growing. It means embracing who you are as you are right now, knowing that your worth is not conditional on perfection, achievements, or others' opinions. It means recognizing that you are whole, even when you struggle, that you can be both imperfect and worthy, both growing and already enough. Self-acceptance is the moment you stop waiting for permission to be yourself. It's the realization that nothing in you is broken, that the shame you've carried was never yours to bear, that every experience, every failure, every rejection, every moment of doubt wasn't proof of your unworthiness, but a part of your journey toward deeper strength, awareness, and self-trust. Because you are not your shame. You are the one who has the power to rewrite the story. Shame may feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to define you. Like any emotion, it can be understood, processed, and transformed. And that's exactly what we are going to do now, step by step. Let's dive into the reset strategy to shift shame into self-acceptance. R. Recognize the shame. The first step in transforming shame is to recognize it when it arises. Shame is often subtle and sneaky, slipping in quietly, masquerading as an inner voice telling you that you are not enough. You may not notice it immediately, but once you become aware of its presence, pause. Acknowledge it for what it is. Say to yourself, I'm feeling shame. Just by naming it, you begin to separate yourself from the emotion and gain the ability to process it more consciously. Recognizing shame gives you power over it, instead of allowing it to control your thoughts and actions. E. Explore the source of the shame. Next, ask yourself, where is this shame coming from? Was it instilled in you by society, a family member, or a past experience? Is it tied to a belief that you are not enough, or a fear of rejection? Dive deep into the source and challenge it. Ask yourself, is this belief truly mine? Often shame comes from external pressures, societal expectations, or past judgments. It's essential to question whether the narrative you've accepted is a reflection of someone else's story or a belief that no longer serves you. Explore how this shame has been passed down. Sometimes it's a learned behavior that can be unlearned. S. Shift the narrative. Once you've explored the source of shame, it's time to shift the narrative. Change the story you tell yourself. Instead of clinging to thoughts like I'm not worthy, reframe them with compassion and self-empowerment. You could say, I made a mistake, but that doesn't mean I am a failure. I have imperfections, but that doesn't take away from my inherent values as a person. I am worthy of love and respect, even when I don't meet everyone's expectations. This shift is key to freeing yourself from shame's grip. Embrace the fact that mistakes are part of the human experience. They don't diminish your worth. They are simply opportunities to learn and grow. When you stop defining yourself by your failures and instead recognize them as part of your journey, you open the door to deeper self-compassion and acceptance. E. Embrace self-acceptance. Step into self-acceptance. This is where you give yourself permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to be human. Embrace the idea that you are not defined by your shortcomings. You are a multifaceted person deserving of love, kindness, and understanding. Remind yourself, I am enough just as I am. Self-acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It means embracing your authentic self without judgment. You can still strive for growth, but you don't have to do it at the expense of your self-worth. You are worthy of being loved and accepted exactly as you are, in all your complexity and imperfection. T. Take action with love. Finally, take action from a place of self-love. What steps can you take to care for yourself in this moment of shame? Perhaps it's setting boundaries, practicing self-care, or apologizing when necessary. Whatever it is, do it with love and compassion for yourself. The key is to act with kindness, not perfection, knowing that taking action with love is a step towards healing. Remember, self-acceptance isn't about being flawless. It's about honoring your journey and giving yourself the grace to grow. When you act with love, shame loses its hold over you, and you open yourself up to the transformative power of self-compassion. Shame no longer holds powers over you when you recognize it. Explore its roots, shift the narrative, and embrace self-acceptance. By taking loving actions, you transform shame from a source of pain into an opportunity for growth and healing. Self-acceptance doesn't mean stopping your journey. It means honoring every step of it, flaws and all. Guilt and shame are disempowering emotions. They limit your perception of yourself and your abilities, distorting your self-image and eroding your self-esteem and confidence. Over time, this can become incredibly destructive. But here's the important truth. Guilt and shame are messengers. They are trying to get your attention, showing you where you need to empower yourself and where your limiting beliefs are poisoning your life and blocking your growth. Think of them as a wake-up call, urging you to stop being led by old, negative patterns of thought and belief. The more we understand them, the clearer their deeper purpose becomes. These emotions are signals, not sentences. Now that you have the reset framework in your toolkit, you can approach these emotions differently. Instead of letting guilt and shame define your self-image and self-worth, you can use them as tools for self-reflection and improvement. You can harness their energy, transforming them from limiting beliefs into powerful superpowers that get you towards self-awareness, empowerment, and aligned action. Guilt can become self-compassion. Shame can evolve into self-acceptance. And both can redirect you towards a more fulfilling life, a better reflection of your true self. By embracing these emotions, you can drive your life with purpose and gain a deeper understanding of who you are. So I challenge you, apply the reset framework in your daily life. Start noticing when guilt and shame show up and use this method to shift your emotional energy. Reflect on how these emotions can guide you toward authenticity, uniqueness, and self-awareness. Trust me, they are here for your transformation, not your destruction. Thank you for tuning into this episode. I hope you found values in the reset process and are excited to use it on your journey. In the next video, we will dive deep into sadness and loneliness, what they teach us and how we can turn them into superpowers. Until then, take care and remember, reset your guilt into self-compassion and your shame into self-acceptance. You have the power to transform your emotions and create the identity you desire. Much love, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.